"Security will escort you out," she said, not even looking up from her tablet. Said it like she was ordering her morning latte. I didn't move. I just stood there holding a manila folder that weighed maybe half a pound but carried enough explosive material to blow this whole executive suite to pieces. But before I tell you about what was in that folder, you need to understand how we got here. You need to know who I am, and more importantly, who they thought I was. My name is Christopher Patterson. Chris to most folks. I'm 49 years old, and for the last 18 years, I've been the Senior Operations Compliance Manager at Anderson Freight Lines. That's corporate speak for the guy who makes sure we don't end up on the wrong side of federal regulators. I spent 6 years in the Navy before this, learned how to keep my mouth shut and my eyes open, skills that serve me well in the civilian world. Anderson Freight was a family business, started by old man William Anderson back in 1985 with 3 trucks and a dream. By the time I got here, we were running 300 trucks across 12 states, moving everything from auto parts to medical supplies. Nothing fancy, nothing sexy. Just honest work moving America's goods from point A to point B. Mr. Anderson was old school, wore the same style boots for 30 years, knew every driver by name, and believed that if you took care of your people, they'd take care of your business. He respected the rules because he understood that in trucking, cutting corners gets people killed. He respected me because I helped him sleep at night knowing we were doing things right. Then Mr. Anderson had a heart attack last spring, massive one, right there in the warehouse while he was checking on a delayed shipment. The man died doing what he loved, but his death left a vacuum that got filled by all the wrong people. Instead of promoting his seasoned operations manager, the board brought in their golden girl. Stephanie Morrison, 34 years old, fresh Wharton MBA, and the daughter of board member Patricia Morrison. Stephanie had never driven a truck, never loaded freight, never spent a night worrying about whether a driver would make it home safe in bad weather. But she had an MBA and a 5-year plan to modernize our operational matrix. The change was immediate and brutal. It wasn't just new leadership, it was cultural warfare. The faded blue walls got painted stark white. The coffee maker we'd had for 15 years got replaced with some app-controlled monstrosity that made you watch a 30-second company video before it would give you coffee. I'm not kidding. I watched it all from my office on the 2nd floor of our main terminal. To people like Stephanie, I was invisible. Legacy staff, furniture left over from the Anderson era, probably collecting pension and resisting change. She had no idea that my quiet wasn't compliance. It was reconnaissance. See, in my line of work, you learn to listen more than you talk. You learn that the loudest person in the room usually has the most to hide. And Stephanie was very, very loud. She held all-hands meetings where she talked about right-sizing our human capital and pivoting to a tech-forward logistics paradigm. Lady, we're a trucking company. We own trucks and trailers and employ drivers. We're not some Silicon Valley startup, but she didn't want to hear that. 3 months into her reign, the firing started. Quiet at first. Bill Hendricks, our veteran dispatch supervisor, retired early to spend time with his grandkids. Janet Walsh from accounting took a voluntary separation package. These were good people with decades of experience, and Stephanie was pushing them out to bring in her own team. That's when I started noticing problems in the vendor approval system. My department is supposed to vet every new contractor. We check for proper licensing, insurance, safety records. We make sure our partners meet DOT requirements. Suddenly, contracts were getting approved without crossing my desk. I'd see invoices for IT consulting firms that had been incorporated last week. GPS tracking contracts awarded to companies with no physical address. When I went to Jeff Walsh, Stephanie's new COO, he just shrugged. "Chris, you're thinking too linearly," he said, straightening his tie. "We're moving fast. We can't wait for every box to be checked." Stephanie approved it personally. "Jeff, this isn't red tape," I told him. "This is federal law. If we're hauling hazmat loads, our tracking partners need DOT certification." "We're disrupting the old paradigms," he said, turning back to his computer. "Just file it, or we can find someone who will." That was the first threat. Subtle, but clear. Get on board or get out. Most guys my age would have polished up their resume and started making calls. But I'm not most guys. I felt something cold settle in my gut. Not fear, recognition. I'd seen this kind of reckless leadership before, back in the service. Officers who thought rules were suggestions, who believed their rank made them untouchable. I'd learned how to document those situations too. I went back to my office and started doing what the Navy taught me. I didn't just file those irregular contracts, I documented them. I started keeping a shadow log of every protocol bypass, every safety override, every regulation they ignored. They thought they were streamlining operations to boost quarterly numbers. I knew they were building a house of cards in a windstorm. The foundation of that house got shakier every week. Stephanie wasn't just incompetent, she was dangerous. Her strategy seemed to be moving money around fast enough that nobody would notice it was disappearing. The first major red flag came when they changed our coffee vendor. Sounds stupid, right? But for 20 years, we'd had a contract with Midwest Coffee Service. Good coffee, fair price, local business. One Monday, those machines were gone, replaced by the app-controlled dispensers that made you watch Stephanie's face on a little screen. Talking about engagement metrics while you waited for lukewarm coffee, I checked the numbers. The old coffee contract cost us $800 a month. The new system cost $2,400 monthly plus a $15,000 setup fee. For worse coffee, that's when I knew. She was broke. The company was bleeding money and she was cutting the coffee budget to pay for consulting fees. I pulled our quarterly financials. They were password protected now, 3 layers deep, but compliance officers have master keys to doors the executives forgot exist. The numbers were ugly. Our core freight business was down 23% because Stephanie had fired experienced dispatchers and replaced them with an algorithm that kept routing refrigerated loads through the desert in July. But the real bomb dropped on a Tuesday. Email subject line, operational efficiency restructuring. I didn't need to open it to know what it said, but I did anyway. To align with our agility objectives, the compliance department will be absorbed into our public relations function. We believe compliance is fundamentally a communications challenge. I actually laughed. Compliance isn't communications. Compliance is don't go to federal prison insurance. Putting us under PR was like putting the fire department under the control of an arsonist who likes pretty flames. An hour later, Amanda Price from HR knocked on my door. Amanda was maybe 28, looked like she'd just graduated sorority rush, and talked to me like I was her confused grandfather. "Chris," she chirped, "we need to collect your old security badge. We're upgrading to biometric scanners." So modern, right? My heart did a slow, heavy thud. My badge. The badge that looked just like everyone else's but contained a little more than they knew. "Badge works fine, Amanda," I said, not looking up from my computer. I was busy backing up 18 years of files to a secure cloud server. "Oh, I know, but Stephanie wants everyone on the new system. We're collecting all the RFID badges to recycle the components." Recycle. Sure. They wanted to wipe the memory banks. They wanted to erase the digital history. "I'll drop it off later," I said. "Got a DOT audit report to finish. Don't take too long. We're deactivating the old system Friday at 5. After she left, I looked at the badge clipped to my belt. To Amanda, it was a piece of plastic. To me, it was a flight recorder from a crashing plane. 2 years ago, after a corruption scandal involving a regional manager in Dallas, our old board had panicked. They'd authorized something called Project Transparency. They wanted a fail-safe, a way to ensure that if management ever went rogue, there would be an unalterable record. They came to me, gave me a badge that looked identical to everyone else's but had a secondary function. Every time I swiped into a secure area, the boardroom, the server room, executive offices, the badge didn't just unlock doors. It activated a passive recording system that documented who was present and digitally notarized any documents displayed or shared during that session. It was a digital witness that proved I was there and by extension proved what they were doing while I was there. Stephanie didn't know about Project Transparency. She just knew she wanted me gone and my access revoked. I had until Friday to use it. The next 3 days were like a covert operation. I attended every meeting I could justify. Strategy sessions where Jeff discussed shifting liability for accidents to our subcontractors. Illegal. Board meetings where they discussed hiding maintenance issues from DOT inspectors. Very illegal. Executive lunches where Stephanie bragged about reclassifying hazmat loads as general freight to save on insurance. Catastrophically illegal. Thursday morning, I discovered the real scope of Stephanie's scheme. While reviewing quarterly reports for filing purposes, I found the smoking gun. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, consulting fees that went nowhere, equipment purchases that never materialized. She'd been systematically draining the company's reserves. The total? $2.8 million. Enough to fund her next startup venture, which according to her LinkedIn, she was already promoting to potential investors. She wasn't just stealing from Anderson Freight, she was stealing from us to compete against us. That same day, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Stephanie was in the break room with Jeff, discussing the upcoming workforce optimization. "The drivers over 45 are costing us too much in insurance," she said, stirring her overpriced coffee. "Find a way to encourage early retirement. Make their routes longer, their deadlines tighter. They'll quit or mess up enough that we can fire them for cause." "What about wrongful termination lawsuits?" Jeff asked. "That's why we're cutting their safety budget by 25%, she replied. "When they complain about worn tires or faulty equipment, we'll document it as resistance to efficiency measures." Insubordination. I stood there in the hallway, listening to them plan to destroy the careers of men who'd been driving these roads longer than Stephanie had been alive. Men with families, mortgages, kids in college. Men who'd never missed a delivery, never had a preventable accident, never asked for anything more than fair treatment and safe equipment. That's when I knew this wasn't just about corporate fraud. This was personal. By Thursday night, I could feel them closing in. My computer access was getting slower. My email password expired twice. They were trying to frustrate me into quitting so they wouldn't have to pay unemployment. Friday morning, the calendar invite appeared. Personnel Resource Realignment Discussion. Host, Stephanie Morrison. Attendees, Christopher Patterson, Rachel Martinez. Legal. Location, Executive Conference Room. Time, 2 p.m. This was it, the execution. I spent lunch in my truck in the parking lot eating a sandwich I couldn't taste and watching our building. It looked solid from the outside. 40 years of honest business. Inside, it was rotting from the head down. At 1:55, I walked back in, stopped in the restroom, washed my hands, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. The fluorescent lights weren't kind to the gray in my hair or the lines around my eyes, but my eyes were sharp. They were the eyes of someone who'd checked his equipment twice and knew exactly what was about to happen. I took the badge off my belt, held it for a moment. "All right, Stephanie," I said to my reflection. "Let's see how modern your prison cell looks." I walked to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see silhouettes. Stephanie pacing like a caged cat. Rachel sitting still, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. I swiped my badge one last time. Beep. Green light. Lock click. The system logged my entry. User C. Patterson, time 13:57. Status authorized. And the hidden protocol whispered to the mainframe. Session initiated. Recording active. Audit trail engaged. I pushed open the door. The conference room was freezing. Stephanie liked it that way. Said it kept people alert, but I think she just enjoyed watching people shiver. She didn't look up when I entered, just kept swiping on her tablet, performing extreme business importance. Rachel looked like she was suffering from chronic nausea. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't sit. There was a chair pulled out for me at the far end of the table, but I stayed standing. I placed my manila folder on the polished table. The sound was soft but seemed to echo in the silence. Stephanie finally stopped swiping. "Go ahead, Rachel." Rachel cleared her throat. Sounded like grinding gears. "Chris, thank you for coming. As you know, we're restructuring to eliminate operational redundancies. We've decided to consolidate the compliance function under our communications team. You're firing the safety department," I said. My voice was steady. Too steady. "We're integrating it," Stephanie snapped, finally looking at me. "We don't need a whole department telling us what we can't do. We need solutions. We need enablers. Frankly, Chris, your approach is outdated. It's heavy. It doesn't fit our brand." "My approach is federal law compliance," I said. "This isn't a debate," Stephanie said, waving her hand like shooing a fly. "Your position is eliminated effective immediately. We're offering 2-week severance in exchange for signing a standard non-disclosure agreement. If you don't sign, you get nothing, and we'll contest your unemployment claim." The disrespect was breathtaking. She wanted me to feel small, wanted me to feel like some confused old guy being put out to pasture because he couldn't figure out the new computer systems. But I didn't feel small. I felt like a demolition expert watching the countdown hit 0. "I'm not signing that, Rachel," I said quietly. Stephanie let out a theatrical sigh. "Oh my God." "Rachel, call security. I don't have time for a breakdown." I reached for my belt. unclipped my badge. The plastic click echoed in the room. "You're right, Stephanie," I said. "Security should be here, but not for me." I slid the badge across the table toward Rachel. It spun slowly over the polished wood and stopped right in front of her shaking hands. "What is this?" Stephanie asked, irritated. "Rachel," I said, ignoring her. "Check the serial number on the back of that badge." Rachel picked it up with trembling fingers, flipped it over, squinted at the tiny numbers. "Project, transparency, alpha." "Oh." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh no." "What?" Stephanie barked. "What is it?" "Ma'am," Rachel said, her voice shaking, "we need to stop this meeting. We need to call the board chairman." "Why?" Stephanie demanded. I smiled. "Because that badge isn't just ID, Stephanie. It's a wire. Silence is a funny thing. In a boardroom, silence usually means someone's thinking. But this silence was the sound of a heart stopping. Stephanie looked between me and Rachel, confusion replacing irritation. "Rachel, talk to me." Rachel was staring at the badge like it was a live grenade. Project Transparency is a board-authorized monitoring system. This badge has been recording every meeting you've held for months. "You're lying," Stephanie said, but her voice cracked. "That's illegal. Two-party consent. Check your employment contract," I said, leaning against the wall. Section 12, paragraph C. All executive meetings on company property are subject to internal monitoring for compliance purposes. Mr. Anderson put that clause in 20 years ago. You signed away your privacy rights the day you took this job. Stephanie's face went white. The Cayman Islands transfers. All logged, I said. Every time you used the executive Wi-Fi to approve those shell company payments, my badge captured the packet signatures. It verified your device ID, time-stamped the transactions. I pointed to the manila folder. "That's not severance paperwork, Stephanie. That's the index." She opened it with trembling hands. 10 pages. Page 1. Unauthorized payments totaling $2.8 million. Page 2. Safety violations and worker injury cover-ups. Page 3. Age discrimination documentation and the plan to force out drivers over 45. "This," she stammered. "Evidence," I finished. And here's the best part. I didn't just save it locally. That glitchy network connection all week, that was the system uploading everything to the external audit firm the board retained. The one in Switzerland. The upload completed at 1:30 p.m. The automated alert went out to Chairman Morrison at 1:45. Rachel closed her eyes. "Your mother got the report 15 minutes ago." Stephanie's phone buzzed. Caller ID. "Mom." She stared at it. Didn't answer. "You should take that," I suggested. She hates going to voicemail. "You think you're clever?" Stephanie snarled. "You think some recordings are going to destroy me? The stock is up. Profits are up." "Profits are up because you cut safety spending by 25%, I said. "That works for 1 quarter. Then the trucks start breaking down, drivers start getting hurt, and the DOT shows up with handcuffs." "We haven't done anything illegal," she insisted. "Really? Is it legal to reclassify hazmat loads as general freight to dodge insurance premiums? Because I have you on tape instructing Jeff to do exactly that last Tuesday." Rachel put her head in her hands. "Please tell me you didn't approve hazmat reclassification." "It's just a coding adjustment," Stephanie lied. "The badge shows you overrode the safety warning twice," I said. "In trucking, that's not a firing offense. That's a federal prison offense." The door opened. Jeff walked in, looking sweaty and carrying a box of his personal items. "Jeff?" Stephanie asked. "HR just terminated my contract," he mumbled. "Something about data breach protocols." He looked at the badge on the table and understood immediately. "I didn't know," he said to me. "I just did what she told me." "Save it for the FBI," I said. Stephanie watched her loyal COO flee. She looked at Rachel, who was mentally drafting her resignation. Then she looked at me. "You've ruined everything," she hissed. "We were going to revolutionize this industry." "Stephanie," I said, picking up my folder. "This is a trucking company. We haul freight on highways. You were driving drunk on the interstate." Heavy footsteps approached in the hallway. Security. The real kind. "Now," I said, "I think that's your escort." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Not the rent-a-cops from downstairs. These were federal investigators. They showed their badges to Rachel, who nodded weakly. "Stephanie Morrison?" the lead agent asked. "We need you to come with us for questioning regarding financial irregularities at Anderson Freight Lines." Stephanie looked at me one last time, pure hatred in her eyes, but also fear, real fear, the kind you get when you realize the game is over and you lost. "This isn't over," she said as they escorted her out. "Yeah, it is," I replied. 3 months later, the office is boring again. It's beautiful. The walls are back to faded blue. We've got the old coffee service back. Midwest Coffee Service was happy to have our business again, especially when I told them what happened to their replacement. The stock price stabilized. Not to the moon like Stephanie promised, but steady, with real dividends going to real shareholders. Stephanie took a plea deal. Turns out federal prosecutors love having HD audio of executives admitting to transportation safety fraud and embezzlement. She got 30 months in minimum security, plus 5 years probation and a lifetime ban from serving as an officer of any public company. Last I heard, she's writing a book about adversity and women in business. I'm sure it'll sell dozens of copies to people who don't know the real story. Jeff cooperated with the investigation and got probation plus a $500,000 fine. He's selling insurance in Florida now, probably telling his clients how important compliance is. The $2.8 million, most of it got recovered from those shell companies in the Caymans. Out Swiss audit firms are very good at freezing assets when they smell fraud. The money went back into the company, specifically into the safety and maintenance budgets that Stephanie had gutted. As for me, I'm exactly where I've always been. Same office, same view of the truck yard where our drivers prep their rigs every morning. My title changed, though. They couldn't fire me, couldn't buy me out, so they promoted me. Chief Security Officer. It's a made-up title, but it comes with a real raise and a seat at every board meeting. People walk differently around me now. New hires get warned on their first day. Don't cut corners. Don't try to game the system. Chris will know. Chris always knows. It keeps everyone honest, which is exactly what Mr. Anderson would have wanted. We instituted some changes after Stephanie's little reign of terror. Mandatory safety training for all management. Background checks on every vendor. A whistleblower hotline that goes straight to an external law firm, not internal HR. And every executive meeting is now recorded and archived. No more secret deals, no more handshake agreements that bypass federal regulations. The drivers love it. These are men who've been on the road for decades, who know the difference between a company that respects them and one that sees them as disposable. Word gets around in the trucking community. Anderson Freight is a good place to work again. We're getting applications from experienced drivers who left for better opportunities when Stephanie was making their lives miserable. Our safety record is the best it's been in years. Funny how that happens when you actually maintain your equipment and don't force drivers to cut corners on rest breaks. The board asked me to stay on past retirement age, gave me a consulting contract that basically says I can work as long as I want, with full benefits and the authority to investigate any operation that doesn't smell right. I'm 49, but I feel like I've got another 15 years in me, maybe more. Tonight I'm the last one in the building again. The night shift drivers are heading out for their runs. I wave to them through my window. They wave back. These guys know I've got their backs, and they've got mine. I look out at the highway where our trucks are rolling through the darkness, carrying America's freight safely from one place to another. It's not glamorous. It's not disruptive. It's not going to make anyone a billionaire or get featured on the cover of business magazines. It's just honest work. Work that matters. Work that keeps the country moving. I touch the badge on my belt. They gave me a new one with updated security features, but I kept the old Project Transparency badge as a backup. The little red light pulses once. System status, secure. Watchdog, active. Some people ask me if I feel bad about what happened to Stephanie. After all, she was young, ambitious, probably thought she was doing the right thing. I don't feel bad, not even a little. She didn't just steal money. She put drivers at risk. She planned to destroy the careers of good men whose only crime was getting older. She treated a 40-year family business like her personal ATM. In the Navy, we had a saying, ship, shipmate, self, in that order. The mission comes first, then your people, then yourself. Stephanie got it backwards. She put herself first, her image second, and everyone else dead last. I turn off my office lights and head for the elevator. My boots make a solid, dependable sound on the concrete floor, not the click of expensive heels, the sound of work boots that have walked through fire and come out the other side. Going down? The elevator asks. No, I say to the empty car. We're staying right here. And the old soldier goes home, mission accomplished. The end.